Good morning. I hope everyone had an excellent weekend. Last year, we introduced faculty perspectives. These are opportunities to hear insight and life lessons of outside the classroom from one of your teachers. This week, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Green. In addition to teaching English, Mr. Green has a passion for the theater, for films, and his New Orleans Saints. Earlier this year, I loved watching Mr. Green connect with his new advisees at the freshman retreat. Without any more delay, here is Mr. Green.
Hey everyone, Mr. Green here. Good morning. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about kind of the sweet and the sour. So just a little bit of perspective about how I see the world. As some of you may know, pretty much my entire adult life, I've dealt with, in some way, shape, or form, depression and anxiety. Had my bouts of severity on both ends of that. And one of the ways that I've worked to, and I spent years, you know, finding different ways to cope with it and deal with it, and a lot of the usual ways. But I've always found myself gravitating toward my love of literature and music and movies. And if you know me, you know how much I love those things and how much I talk about them and use them as ways to kind of talk about other things and bigger ideas. But my interest in pop culture, though, generally I found informs so much of how I view the world and how I behave within it. And so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about one of my favorite books, and it's called High Fidelity, and it's by Nick Hornby. It was written in the 1990s. And just to give you a quick summary, if you're not familiar with it, it's about a man in his 20s, and his life is a mess. But he runs an independent record store in London, and his whole life is surrounded by music. And he loves to make lists of top 5 and top 10 this, and he argues and bickers with his workmates and friends about all the different minutiae about music. And I mentioned that his life is a mess. His girlfriend has just broken up with him, and so he embarks on this journey of trying to figure out why that happened. And so he goes and tracks down all of the other people that he's had relationships with and tries to get to the bottom of why those relationships ended the way they did. Sometimes it's kind of tragic, and sometimes it's hilarious. But he comes to the realization, in the book, that it comes down to a central question for him, and it is this. It's this. Which came first, the music or the misery? Am I depressed because I love pop music, or do I love pop music because I'm depressed? And that's always kind of stayed with me. And that's, people, when I talk about music, especially, and we'll talk about music right now, but I tend to gravitate towards stuff that's a little bit slower, a little bit more kind of introspective. Some people might call it like really depressing music. My wife gets on to me about that all the time. She's like, how can you, I'll be in the car and I'll be like, I want to listen to this. And she'll be like, that's just so dark. I don't want to listen to that right now. And I get it, believe me. At the same time, that doesn't mean that I don't love stuff that's quote unquote happy music. Things like, one of my guilty pleasures, Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus, or Ocean's 11, which is a great heist movie, which is very fun, or the books of P.G. Wodehouse, which deals with Jeeves and Wooster and these wacky adventures they get into. And it's like dessert to me, But those stories and pieces of music and so on, they also deal with people who are kind of overcoming their problems, right? Miley Cyrus has to figure out how she's going to deal with living in Hollywood. And Ocean's 11, the guy's got to figure out how to get back with his girlfriend. And P.G. Wodehouse, they always have to get him out of jams and so on. But the solutions to those problems are often very superficial, or they're very unrealistic. Miley Cyrus just thinks if she just nods her head like, yeah, that's going to solve a lot of her problems. Ocean's 11, they think by, going through the process of robbing a bunch of casinos is going to solve their problems. And with P.G. Wodehouse, it all just comes down to one really smart butler who always saves the day. But those things always kind of struck me as superficial, and that's good and that's fine. It's good to kind of immerse ourselves in that. But um, my all-time favorite band is a band called The Cure. And The Cure is kind of the poster boys for kind of depressing music, although I don't necessarily see it that way. So what's my point here? So much of popular culture is inherently dark. Okay, we have no choice but to accept that. Um, and so we have to kind of take the sweet with the sour. Um, uh, but here's the thing: I don't really get depressed by darker stuff. You know, um, it actually helps me to step outside of myself a little bit and kind of understand that sometimes immersing myself in somebody else's struggle helps me to understand mine, and perhaps I'm overthinking it, but it helps me, Um, but most importantly, though, and this is something I've always believed about art generally, is that we continue to pursue art, whether it's through traditional art, visual arts like painting and sculpture, or music, or movies, or books. Um, I believe it's so that we can eventually discover that we're not alone. That we're gonna encounter a line or a gesture or some sort of statement that speaks to us personally and makes us realize that our weirdness is not really all that weird, that we're all pretty weird. Um, and so that's my that I, so part of why I immerse myself in that kind of stuff to help me cope with my anxiety and depression is just accepting that my weirdness isn't really that weird at all, and that kind of makes me happy, you know. Um, and it's so important to me and my outlook to balance out what I call the sweet and the sour, to steal a line from one of the great underrated movies, Vanilla Sky. Um, the sweet and the sour. We have to balance that out, right? Because it's all there. And so asking this question of which came first, the music or the misery, is really kind of pointless because it's always all been there and it's all kind of wrapped up together. And thank goodness that we have so much great art out there to help us understand that. And so that's my message to you. And thank you guys for listening. And I hope it was understandable and not too rambly. But anyway, you guys have a great week, and I will see you in class. Bye.
Before giving this week's schedule of athletics, I just want to say thank you to the cheerleaders, SGA, band, and everyone else in advance who's contributed to our pep rally, which will be this Friday at the stadium at SportsMed Field. It'll be during consultation time, like I said, on Friday. After making some last-minute adjustments to their schedule last week, the volleyball team returns and will host JP2 Tuesday and then take on Westminster Christian and Athens at Westminster on Thursday. After defeating Glencoe in a wet game and moving to 2-0 on the season, football will host JP2 at SportsMed Field on Friday. Cross country will head across the border to Georgia to compete in the Clara Bowl Invitational at Berry College on Saturday. Good luck to all of these teams. In other announcements, we've had a few visitors trying to come onto campus during these first few weeks of school. Please know that students from other schools should not be visiting you during the day on our campus. All visitors must check in with the front office. Currently, even visitors meeting with faculty and staff must first have an appointment and set that up through Ms. Maynor. Any new student who is interested in joining the Youth Leadership Council, otherwise known as YLC, can pick up an application from Mrs. Hodges. If you have any questions about this organization and the work that they do, please see Mrs. Hodges or Emma Henson. Please remember to check in with your advisor at the start of consultation time on Tuesdays and Fridays. As in the past, this is required And missing this check-in will earn points just like missing a class. With Wednesday's break only being 5 minutes, you will not need to then. We are having some issues as well with students not picking up after themselves at lunch, especially outside. By the time we get to upper school, we should be able to pick up after ourselves. Be sure to clean your trash and anyone else's left at your table from lunch. Also, we're working on spreading out a little more outside as well. Please do not move chairs from one table to another. While this year we are able to eat with our friends and not just eat every day in advisory, we're still monitoring where people are sitting in the case that we have to contact trace if there's a close contact exposure to a positive COVID case. This includes outdoor spaces. A close contact outside includes anyone within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. Indoors, if you're masked and 3 feet apart, as the majority of our classrooms are, you will not have to quarantine. Also, if after a close contact you're asymptomatic and you've had the vaccine, you will not have to quarantine. This year, Nurse Deb has a brand new office. Her office is located right between Mrs. Cantman's classroom and Coach Morris's office. You can enter it from the main hallway, so you won't have to come in through the main upper school office. And while we're working on getting a new sign outside her door, right now the sign just says faculty. And today marks a big day. It's the first day of senior privileges. If you're senior and not on the list for Privs, please see Ms. Pirani. She can answer any of your questions and let you know what you need to do in order to get them. If you're not a senior, then you do not have privileges to leave campus during one of your free periods, even if that is at the start or the end of the day. Last year, we had some COVID-related changes to our normal policies, but we've returned to how it was previously. Your free periods are designed to give you time to get a head start on homework, to study for a class, or to meet with a teacher to work on the material that you're studying. We already have had a few students develop a bit of a pattern of leaving early. This is not to be a time to leave campus. Students, outside of the seniors with privileges, are expected to be at school on campus from the time school starts in the morning at 8:10 until the time it ends at 3:20. If a pattern emerges, then you may find yourself losing free periods and placed in study hall. It is not acceptable just to have a parent call the office to say that you're leaving. If you leave campus during the day, it is to be for a special situation, like a doctor's appointment. And with any doctor's appointment, you will need to bring a note from the doctor following the visit and leave it with Ms. Maynor at the front desk. And finally, we're excited that this week we begin our partnership with the Social Institute. Some of the best schools in the nation have partnered with this group to bolster advisory programming. To share a little more about how to get started for Thursday's advisory session, here is Mr. Townsend.
Good morning, Upper School. This is just a quick check-in to let you know that on Thursday during advisory, we will be starting a new program called Win at Social. This is a program that we are doing school-wide, lower school, middle school, and upper school, and it is all about social and emotional learning and practicing good, safe behaviors online. All you need on Thursday is to have either your computer or a mobile device, and you'll be able to do it then. It's pretty fun, and it should be engaging for you all. So looking forward to hearing your feedback from it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time and attention today. Our hope is that next week, our seniors and our freshman classes will be able to be in the Thurber Arts Center for a live community time at our first senior speeches of the year. Everyone else hopefully will be watching live stream in their advisory. Until then, be excellent to each other, and seniors, you're dismissed.